Hey, welcome back to Middleism Apologetics. Glad you could join me today for another episode of Apologetics. Now, it might seem like I've been picking on John Watson a lot, and I guess I kind of am. He's one of those guys that uh, does the live thing on Tuesday nights, and he's the one who does it live thing on Sunday mornings, and he's getting out there everywhere and bragging about how this is spreading to Africa and this place and that place, and of course, um, my job is to demonstrate why what he preaches and teaches is false. I know he does not like that. And in his own thinking, he somehow has dismissed me and refuted everything that I've ever said or talked about, and that's quite not true. It's kind of a sad thing here. So let us go to today's sermon. He's going to be talking about 4 really important reasons why Christians need to know that Jesus returned 2,000 years ago. And we're going to deal with each one. So this might end up turning into 4 separate ones as I deal with each one individually. And because I don't want to get too long. So with that being said, let's dive into what he has to say and what he's saying.
So we're going to talk about 4 reasons. The first one is this. Moses and the prophets were fulfilled. In Matthew chapter 5, matter of fact, I want you to look at this. This is great, guys, this is great news. This is not something we should dread or worry about or even worry about teaching others about, because this is the power of the gospel. Matthew chapter 5. Jesus said, "Do not think that I come to destroy the prophets." Did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. What do you think he meant by that? Look at verse 18. "For truly I say unto you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest stroke or letter shall pass from the law until all is accomplished." Now, there's so much. Do not think that I come to destroy the prophets. Did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. What do you think he meant by that? Look at verse 18. "For truly I say unto you, until heaven and earth pass away."
Pause. Okay, let's go to there, and I will. Oh, but a little thing disappeared. Let's find it. We're going to Bible Hub. We're going to go to Matthew 5:17, and we're going to talk about something. This is real simple. Real simple. And I'll show you a couple definite reasons why. He goes to, like all predators, they go to Matthew 5:17 and 18, and they want to prove from there that all prophecy ever written was fulfilled, or is going to be fulfilled by 70 AD, obviously, in that generation. And that is the whole tie-in. 5:17 and 18. "Do not think that I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished." Okay, those are covenant terms. Those are terms talking about a contract. An iota and not a dot. Those would be the same way as saying, I've made a contract about buying my car, and in the fine print it says I have to make my payments on time. It's got to be done by 3 o'clock on the 5th of every month. Otherwise I get charged this and that. If I go 3 months behind, then they will come back and collect the car and I forfeit everything, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So this is called the fine print, the iota and the dot. Iota is the smallest letter, and the dot, of course, is a marking in the Greek alphabet to accent or highlight something. So he came to fulfill the law. And the question is the first thing, is the covenant, well, let's put it this way. In the law and the prophets, they confirm the covenant. They all speak about the covenant. They're there to bring testimony to the law of Moses, to that covenant that was made with Abraham. way back at the beginning. So he cut the covenant with Abraham. Okay? Now, in the covenant, you make promises back and forth. God said, I promise to never leave you, forsake you. I promise to always bless you. I make your name great. I'm going to do all of those things that he promised for Abraham. And then in return, Abraham, what did he tell Abraham? Abraham, you are to follow me, obey me, all those kind of things. But there's that idea of a contract. And that is what the law is all about. And so the law itself can be understood that in several different ways. And one, in this context, when it brings up iota and dot, it's talking about the promises made back and forth. So 17, do not think I have come to abolish all those promises or everything that was made and the prophets upheld, everything that we talked about in the Old Testament, the contract that they upheld. I haven't come to abolish any of that. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill that contract. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota or dot nor will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Now, let's look at this verse. Now, this is only in Matthew. We have Mark, Luke, and John. Do we have a similar passage that helps us in other references? And we do. Jot, tittle. I spelled that wrong. Do we have the same language? Okay, Matthew, then Luke. Luke 16:7. Now this is the parallel. Now get the backdrop and the context of this. Matthew was written to Jews. They would understand the Hebrew idioms. They would understand the subtleties of the language that Luke or Greek audience would not have understood. Now, Luke wrote to a Greek audience, of course, and to Theophilus, so he's going to explain things. So here's the same passage, the identical sister passage, the one Matthew 5:17 and 18. And here's what it says in Luke 16:17. It is easier for heaven and earth to disappear than for the least stroke of a pen to drop off the law. What's it saying? It's easier for heaven and earth to disappear than the least stroke of a pen to drop off the law. In other words, all the promises have to be fulfilled. God can't break his promises. Even if man does, God still has to fulfill his promise because he's the perfect promise keeper. So everything in the terms and the conditions of everything that was said in the law and those promises have to be kept. And this verse is simply saying, hey man, it's easier for all this heaven and the earth and everything God created to suddenly just disappear, cease to exist, pass away, and all of that. It would be a lot easier than any of those law promises that God made in the law for him not to fulfill. He's making a comparison there. I don't know how else to put that. Every promise has to be kept. So it would be easier for heaven and earth to quit and cease to exist than for God not to keep his promises. I think we should be able to understand that part, that God keeps his word. I mean, that's his whole character, his whole nature. So if God is sitting there saying, I keep my word and I keep my promises, then that's what he's saying is it would be easier for heaven and earth just to be swallowed up and cease to exist than it would for me not to keep my promises. In the sister verse, it talks about the law, the prophets, and everything else. Let's look at one other verse in Luke. It would be in Luke 24. Because he mentioned that, fulfilling of everything several times. And he talked about, keeping the law. But here, I want to show you something. This is after his resurrection. And he's walking with him. And he says, then he said to him, these are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses and in the prophets, the Psalms, must be fulfilled. So there's two things that he talks about that have to be fulfilled. One, the promises of that covenant, every little iota, every little dot, every little promise made had to be kept. Number two, everything that was written in the law of the Moses, the prophets, and Psalms, all those things that were written about me must be fulfilled. In Acts, Luke repeats this again. I'm wondering if it'll link over there to that. Yeah. No, it doesn't. Okay, I think I can find it this way. Everything written about. See if I get a good link on there. When they carried out that was written about him, they took him down from the cross. There it is, right? In Acts 13:29. Now this is Paul speaking. Is it? I believe. Let's see. Is this Peter? Come on. There we go. 13:19. So Paul and Barnabas at Antioch, they're talking, and what he said, men of Israel, the God of this people Israel chose our fathers and made him great during the land of Egypt and lifted them and led them out for about 40 years to put them in the wilderness. After destroying 7 nations in the land of Canaan, he gave their land as inheritance. Took 450 years after they gave them to judges and Samuels. Then he asked for a king. Before this coming judgment, and his judgment would you? Did I mess up on that? Oh, 29. I did. Shoot. Okay, let's go back. I was thinking it was 19. Let's go back to 29. All right, now, brothers and sons, family, those among you who fear God, for those who live in Jerusalem, for the rules, because they did not recognize nor understand the utterance of the prophets, were read every Sabbath, fulfilled them by condemning him. See, they fulfilled the prophets, what they said, and they found him not guilty, worth death. And when they carried out all that was written of him, they took him down from the tree and laid him in a tomb. But God raised him from the dead. It was always about the fulfilling of the prophecies concerning Jesus. It was never concerning all prophecies. Let's see something here. Fulfilled all prophecy. Let's see. There was a fulfillment after this. This did not understand all this. Only after this was a fulfillment of prophecy. Do you see that? Prophets might be filled, and all the disciples deserted him, according to everything that was written was fulfilled about him. They are not truth, but this is to fulfill the passage of Scripture. Do you see this? All that was being said here. And this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. It goes on and on and on. And it's all about Christ fulfilling everything. But this is how God fulfilled what he had foretold through all the prophets, saying that Messiah would suffer. Now, when they fulfilled all that was written concerning him. See, the same thing. It's the same context. This took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet. That is the whole intent. See, now what John is going to testify to is that, no, it's not about fulfilling all of the law, all the prophecy, but it's not. That is the incorrect teaching. That is where you narrow down the scope of it, or broaden the scope, to a point where it's not talking about all prophecy, but all prophecy concerning him. And Luke clarifies that very much.
Not the smallest stroke or letter shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. Now, there's so much here. We could definitely spend the rest of our time here talking about just these 2 verses. But I want you to put this into context and why this is important. Because if the law of Moses has not passed, then heaven and earth... If heaven and earth has not been destroyed, then the law of... I did that backwards, didn't I? If heaven and earth has not been destroyed, then the law of Moses is still intact and still in place. That's what Jesus said.
And see, that's not what he said. And there's the confusion. So you see how he was able not even to get it correctly worded up, because that's not the truth. In other words, what they take it when he was trying to explain it is that when the law of Moses comes in, then the evidence in the earth would disappear. Well, they know that the heavens and earth did not disappear in 70 AD. So therefore, heavens and earth can't be the literal heavens and earth. It has to be and represent the old covenant. But the problem is they don't have anywhere in the Old Testament that equates the old heaven and earth as the old covenant. Now it talks about here heavens and here O earth, and he's talking about the witnesses and the people that live under the heaven on the earth and under the heavens are the ones to testify to God and what He did, and so there is no sense of heaven and earth being something else. He is literally talking about the heavens and earth, and that is based on what, like I showed you in Luke 24. It is easier for heaven and earth to pass away than for any of God's laws to become void. And that's the context. Those are sister verses. Those have been shown to John Watson and many others time and time and time again. And see, John started this whole thing off by saying, well, show me I'm wrong. Just show me something where I'm not wrong, and I'll believe you. We want to go to the truth of the scriptures. Well, I've showed it. This is called exegesis. That you can go back and look at those two verses and say, those verses are identical in nature and substance, grammar. I mean, all of that. They have to mean the same thing. But they will deny it. And they won't explain why it won't. It's just a roundabout thing. And they laugh at me, deride me, and everything else. But the whole point is that the heavens and the earth, the old covenant passed away on the cross, and that's another point of contention. He doesn't understand that, according to Hebrews, and I'll make this real simple. According to the law, the priesthood is through the Levites. According to the law of Moses, the priesthood goes through the Levites, like I said, and it required sacrifices, daily sacrifices, yearly sacrifices, the Day of Atonement. It required all of that. Now, the Hebrew writer says that there's been a sacrifice made that ends the needs for all sacrifices. And number two, he changed the priesthood. Jesus was not of the Levitical priesthood, but became our high priest and entered into heaven on our behalf. Therefore, the way into heaven, and you got to hear this, the way into heaven is open up. The way into the holies of holies is opened up. We are no longer barred from that because he has entered into it with the presence of the way and opened up. Now he stands in the way. He becomes the new door. The door of his flesh becomes the entryway. Through his flesh, meaning through his death and resurrection, by his death and resurrection for our sin, we have a way and access into the Holy of Holies. He does not have to come out, because if he's coming out, what you're saying is that the gate of sin is still before us. We still are not allowed to go into heaven until until our sin is taken care of. But see, Christ took care of our sin on the cross. He died for the sins of all mankind. Therefore, he entered into, and through the veil of his flesh, is what Hebrews says, we can enter into that most holy place. That was symbolized by the fact that the temple veil on earth was torn in two. If the veil was torn in two, and that veil represented sin, then that means sin has been removed. And it tore from top to bottom means God tore that thing apart because of God accepting Christ's sacrifice on the cross, made way for men to go into the Holy of Holies. And so once that veil was ripped in two, and that mankind was free to go into that Holy of Holies, he would not be struck down anymore. There was no need for any other sacrifice from anybody. Everybody who comes to believe was made righteous in Christ. And anybody can walk into that Holies of Holies. That was the earthly representation of a spiritual reality, that the way into heaven is opened up. We don't have to wait for him to come out of heaven. We can boldly go into the throne because through the veil of his flesh, because he opened up a better way. That's proper theology. Let's listen to John.
I remember years ago, when I was about 17 years old, this question was asked in a Bible study here in this very room. Nobody would answer this. What does that mean? Started a study on Revelation. And I thought, well, I'll take a stab in the dark. This is the first time I'd sat in the adult class. I'll raise my hand and I'll see if I can answer this. It sounds like the law of Moses will not be destroyed until the earth is destroyed. Isn't that what it says?
No.
Let me read that one more time.
No.
For
Hebrew
truly I say to
idiom.
you, until heaven and earth pass away, Not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. So what is this heaven and earth here? Well, this creates a huge dilemma. And the entire class, for about the next 30 minutes at that time, actually debated this topic. Because it sounds like that's what he's saying. And that's exactly what he's saying. And it took me nearly 30 years to come to that conclusion when it was right there in front of my face all the time. Don't waste 30 years of your life like I did. If it's the
truth. It's so sad. It's so sad, John, that well, I won't beat a dead horse.
Follow it. It's not what the Church of Christ teaches. Well, we'll follow. How many times have you heard a preacher get up in the pulpit and say, we're going to follow the truth wherever it might lead? No, you're not. Don't give me that. Unless you intend to do it, don't say it.
But John doesn't do it himself, because I pointed this out to him. Luke 24, I put multiple times on the side here. I made notes. Look it over here. Let's see if we get this. For instance, here, right here, I would comment on this. Luke 24:50. There was about to be a resurrection of both the just and the unjust. Paul said that runner. Okay, let's look at Acts 24:15. This is another one that I've brought up many times, and I'm going to show you this. Okay, come on. Let's go this way. Acts 24:15. I will conclude with this and then go to another one, so that way we can keep it quite simple. This way you guys can go and look at the scripture yourself, talk about it, and look at it. It is 24:15. Luke 24:15. My bad. Okay. What does it say? Neither can they prove to you what they now bring up against me, but this I confess to you, that according to the way which they call a sect, I worship the God of our fathers, believing everything laid down by the law and written in the prophets. Laid down by the law to the way and written in the prophets. So the prophets upheld what was written in the law, having a hope in God, which these men themselves accept, that there will be a resurrection of both the just and the unjust. That there will be. Or about to be. See, they want to turn this into a timing statement. So if we look at the Greek, and that's exactly what that writer did. I will show you something. Oh, wait. There is about to be. Now, I want you to look at this. That is a present infinitive. It is joined with another verb, future infinitive. Now, this is Matthew 24:15. There is about to be is the literal. But how do the translators translate it? Whoops. Let's do it this. 24:15. How did all the translators put it? And I'll show you why they did it that way. Get myself together here. Okay, parallel. That there will be. That there is about to be is the Berean. That's the literal, right, that we talked about. But everybody else, New Living, that he will, that there will be, that there shall be. And even the Berean Study Bible says that they themselves are, that there will be. See, they changed that from about to be to will be. That there will be, shall be, that there shall be. You keep going on and on and on. And Berean was the only one, right? And then it should be also Young's Literal Translation that would also put literal. That there shall be, that all people, both great, will rise, will come back. That there is to be, and there will be, that there will be. Do you see in almost every one of there is about to be. So there's only two translations that have put about to be. Now let's look at the interlinear. Now, the word is, come on, about to be. So it's joined with that infinitive, right? Okay. So let's look up the word mellow. And I did talk about this in that other one, and this is a very stickler. The very point of acting, ready, about to, knowledge in general of what is also sure to happen. It's used both ways. Okay. The participle omelo, absolute, for the future, hereafter, something that's going to happen. According to the context, more perfect state of things which exist. And it gives you all the examples in there, right? See, Matthew, all the places where it's used in that context of something that's about ready to happen right away. Jesus was about to go into, or Paul was about to go to, or something was about to happen. That's one. Number two, it's joined to an infinitive. Okay? To be on the point of doing or something, well, the infinitive present. There it is, Melon, Etan, Anopean, Luke, John, Acts 23, 22, 23, 21. See, there's no Acts 24 in there, right? So to be on the point of doing or suffering something, it's about to happen. There's also to have an intent, to have in mind, you think to, with the infinitive present. Remember, I told you present infinitive was the construction. Acts 23:30, all the way through. Acts 25, all these things. So the person who is infinitive aorist, the construction, it has to do with, and that's the grammar. That means that I have an intent to. That's going to. I'm telling you that it's going to happen in the future, and I intend for that to happen. Then in Greek writing from like Homer on down, how is melo used? Something that's going to come by divine appointment. Acts 27:10. See this? It's just used of those things we infer from certain precedents of events of will of necessary follow with an infinitive present, with an infinitive future. Now let's look at, I remember I told you about the future infinitive, right? Now let's look at this, what it means by, but also the lives of us is about to be the voyage. Okay, so look at that. Present infinitive, and it's joined with a future infinitive. But also the lives of us is about to be the voyage. Now let's look at how they translated it. Let's look at the parallels, 27:10. Let me just go a little quicker. It's going to be stressed and bring a great loss to shipment and to our own lives. I believe there is trouble ahead. That the voyage is going to be disastrous. So it means something that is sure to happen. Will be with injury. That our voyage will be filled with disaster. The voyage is about to be filled with disaster. You see, it doesn't say about to be, but it is talking about is going to be filled with this. It's going to happen. This is something for sure that they know that it's going to happen as a word of prophecy. Okay? It's going to happen. Let's go back now. One more. Okay, and then one of the last ones here is what? In general, of what is sure to happen with an infinitive present, with infinitive future. So when both of those are put together, aha, Acts 24:15. It also used in Acts 11:28. Let's look at this one real quick. Having risen up now one of them named Agabus, he signified by the spirit of the famine grace about to be over all the world. Okay, that did happen. Same thing, future infinitive, present infinitive. So how is it translated in the parallels? Again, by the spirit that there would be, through the spirit that a great famine would sweep. Where else? That great famine was coming, is about to be over the whole world. See, there's that subtle difference in between the meanings and everything. So 24:15 is not to be translated as about to be. It's a timing thing, but it's talking about what is sure to happen. There is sure to be a famine, and it did happen later. There is sure to be a resurrection. There's going to be a resurrection. It has nothing to do with timing. It just says that there is sure to be. And so that's what makes a problem with this thing right here. So let's look at what they said. It is interesting that most of our translations don't say that. I found over the years that those who want to go back to the Greek and claim what it is supposedly says instead of what our best Greek scholars translated most versions invariably have a false doctrine that isn't in the translation. See? Greek scholars. Okay, I don't care what people argue with me about. I'm working on a PhD. I've got 3 or 4 years of Greek. I am a beginning scholar in Greek, but I know the language. You can give me the Greek, I can transliterate it into English. I can decipher most of what the words are. I've still got some words that I'm still working on and learning. There's only about 4,000 of them, and some of the best Greek scholars have been at it for 30 years and still haven't gotten every word down. But the idea is that a Greek scholar is somebody who's learning the language. So in most versions, you guys are just looking at your English, putting the presupposition there. You won't go back to the scholars that sit there and tell you, you understand this word because it's joined not with the future, with the present infinitive, with the present infinitive. It's joined with the present infinitive with the future infinitive, which means when you put those two together is the idea of what will or is sure to happen. There will be a famine that comes. There will be a resurrection that comes. It doesn't mean it is about to in time. That is not the intent of the author. That is not in the intent of the Greek. So, okay, I've rambled on long enough. This is almost a half an hour. I'll come back and pick up too. But I'm putting it out there. Anybody can look it up through Bible Hub, see what those verses and how they're used, and you can see the whole thing for yourself. So this isn't rocket science, guys. This is not rocket science. Anastas, de heis ex oton onomati agabos esomanen de tau. See, wow. Okay, that's what I'm studying. So, listening, John, oikumenen. I'm not even going into it. All right. Thanks for listening, and I will get you on the backside with part 2 coming up later.